Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
We are still in our series of the 12 Powers. We're doing series everywhere. Have you noticed that? We're doing series on Sundays. We're doing them here on Wednesdays. That keeps us on the same page. It's for the ministers. You guys are just along for the ride. It's just so we can keep our stuff straight. So the cool thing is that this is the 12 Powers, and tonight I get to do the one that was always so weirdly named as the Power of Power. And so you'll notice that it says the power of dominion. Of course, that also means power. And I think, just trying to find a synonym that didn't make it sound so weird and silly. So dominion has an interesting word. It's an interesting word for us, isn't it? It's one that really just kind of calls out something a little bit more noble, dominion. But it's also biblical. And there is famously, there are several places it is in the Bible, but where it shows up first, in the Hebrew Bible at least, and in our what the Christian Bible refers to as the Old Testament, it's actually one of the very first things in Genesis, in the first chapter of Genesis. And it's after the earth has been created, the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the animals of the earth and everything in it had been made and created and set in motion. And then God noticed there was something missing. And so God created human beings. And it says this in the 26th verse in the first chapter. Then God said, "Let us make man, humans, in our image and according to our likeness." Nothing else really got that kind of setup. Nothing got to be in the image of God and in the likeness of God. But let's make something like us. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And so this was a way for this sense of co-creatorship to arise. You're kind of wondering, well, how could the created also be co-creator? Well, the reason and the way is that we are also imbued with a power and with the capacity to draw through a power that is truly divine, that is the creative urge, that is the creative element and image. And we're made in the image and the likeness of the God force, life force, whatever word you want to use, however you think all that is came into being. You can have your own theories about it. Lots of people apparently do. So whatever it is, however it is, it doesn't matter so much as how we're put together and who we are and how we use the power that has come through us. And so the power of dominion is not to lord it over, it's not to control, it's not to overcome, it's not to abuse, it's not to destroy, it's not to, just take what we like and leave the rest and make trash and destroy things because we take the heart out of things and leave the rest, And that's been sort of our process as we've grown in our evolutionary stage, but I think we've reached a place in our consciousness that we recognize that we're destroying a lot of the beauty and a lot of the things that really will sustain us. And we have enough intelligence to recognize that if we keep on this path, we'll not only destroy much of the life that is around us now, but a lot of the life that we depend on, including our own lives, will be affected, if not vanquished. And so dominion means not just power, but it means also responsibility. It means authority. It means the power of choosing how to use, what to do, and how to recognize that the consequences of our choices and the consequences of the things that we do, both as a people and as individuals in our own lives, is the stuff of using our divine power either for good or for ill, either for building up and co-creating and lifting up and holding higher vision and bringing more good to light and love, or in destroying and in investing ourselves in illusion and things that are not the truth and is not what we were created to be, and to be in disease and illness and addiction and a despair, actually. It just really is, the downward spiral of our lives. And yet in every juncture, we have choice to use our power and to use the power that we've been given as a co-creative force. Power is the ability to master, to have dominion and control. But the thing that we really have control over is not out here. We may think it's how we use things, yes, and how we use the things in our world, yes, to some degree. But where the real power is and where the real first force is over the power of our own thoughts and our own feelings. Because you see, we have the power to recognize that what thought we hold repeatedly, to choose our thoughts as we become reflective beings as we are, to choose the thoughts that are uplifting, that are potent, that are in alignment with connection and love and greater good and highest vibration, the highest good. That whatever that is, however we think of those things, as we move through our lives and as we make choices, we see more and more how greater good can come out of those things. We have the power to do that. As we choose our thoughts, so go our feelings with them. Our feelings follow our thoughts. I saying feelings, what I really want to distinguish, and I've done this on this stage before, is emotions. And I would just say, really and truly, when we have a thought, it's our emotions. It's the emotions that follow our thoughts. Feelings, I distinguish in my own way of thinking of it, in my own theology, I guess, my own Karen Tudor theology, is that feelings really exist here as a real felt sense. And they are often independent of what we're thinking. They may arise in harmony with it. They may always be there in contradiction sometimes of it, because they are really rooted in something deeper and truer about us. But for the moment, when I'm really talking about what we have power over, because we don't have the power over our feelings that are really connected to deeper truth, because that was invested in us, that was placed in us. And the feeling of peace, and the feeling of truth, and the feeling of knowing that we know, that's what I'm referring to here. Emotions, anger, sadness, despair, joy, all of the things that come along with, happiness, all of the thoughts that we have and the feelings that go with those are the things we have conscious control over, or we become more consciously aware. And this is where our real power comes, because what we invest our thoughts and our feelings become, with repetition, our beliefs. And our beliefs become sort of the operating systems of our lives. We start to operate in our lives from the sense of what we truly believe, or what we have come to understand, and what is true based on our experience and by the meanings that we've made in our lives. Beliefs can be changed. Beliefs can be undone and unmade with new information, hopefully with growth and with bigger ideas and with healing and change within us, transformation. New beliefs arise. New beliefs are created out of that. They're not for all time. They're not meant to be. They're just to be your touchstones for the, your current working theory of how the world works and who you are in it. And if you're wise, you're constantly revising that and revisiting that and enlarging it. That's really what conscious beings do, is we sort of rewrite these scripts and these understandings as we go. But where we have our power, our dominion is over our thoughts, our feelings, emotions, thoughts and emotions. And as we have control over them, we create out of our words and out of our experiences with one another. We use the tools of affirmations and denials, which we've also talked about here. We talk about the idea that we take the power out of the thing that is illusion and not true, and we affirm a bigger truth than we've been able to hold on to. And we do that with the power of our thoughts and with the power of our words. This is what we practice here in Unity in particular, but in New Thought in general as well. It's a way for us to recognize how it is that we can gain greater control and have our emotional lives and our experience in our life start to match what we truly believe and what we truly know is the deeper truth here with our feelings. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose what our response will be. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Between the stimulus and response, the space gives us a beat, gives us a moment, gives us a break from the rapid-fire, knee-jerk response, and to give ourselves a moment to drop into a timeless spot where we can make a choice, a conscious choice, make a decision consciously how I will respond here, or if I will, or if I need to, or how to do it, or when to do it. This really is where our deepest and greatest power is. This is our co-creative power, because what we choose to do, where we choose to set forth and what we choose to speak from is really where all of the power that creates from us resides, where it all begins. And so the power of claiming our voice becomes the next place. This is what gods do. In the third verse, in the first chapter of Genesis, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Let there be light, and there was light. I've heard that so many times. What if this were the words that we recognize, that when I align myself with what is deeply true, not just wishful thinking, not just what I want to have happen, not just a desire, not just what I'm trying to protect myself against, what is deeply true, what I know that I know that I know. And when I speak that out into the universe, there is light. It is, in fact, encompassed in what we describe as enlightenment. This is the moment when we speak truth that we are truly enlightened and we share that light with the world. This is not small. This is uniquely our capacity and uniquely our obligation and responsibility. This is how we will change the world. This is how we will save it. I discovered a long time ago when I was working in hospital system, and I had moved out of the laboratory where I had been trained to be working in the laboratory that I loved, in the medical laboratory, and believe it or not, got myself into medical staff meetings looking at peer review and quality assurance in the hospital. It was long story, great story, fun life. I really loved it. I had no idea that I had a talent for it, and it was completely unknown at the time, so I got to make it up. Don't tell anybody. They thought I knew, but I really didn't. I mean, nobody knew. It was really something, I was right at the beginnings of what quality assurance would become, so I got to make it up. It was extremely fun. But what happened was, sitting in 7 a.m. meetings with physicians, around a table and listening to them talking about how we were going to either handle certain cases or how they were going to handle certain qualities or policies and patient care in the hospital. And I was sitting there. I came out of the laboratory. I wasn't even a nurse. They all thought I was, and I just didn't tell them any different. I didn't say I was. I didn't say I wasn't. That was the thing. I thought, what difference does it make? I'm here anyway. You know, you're going to have to deal with me. So I listened to them talk, and when there would be a juncture where I felt that somebody needed to redirect. Do you know what I mean? Like they were going the wrong way with this. They were going in a place that wasn't really going to be helpful, and it was just a lot of posturing. It was just a lot of stuff. And I knew somebody needed to say something. I looked around trying to see who was going to say something. Have you ever done that? You're wondering, you know something needs to be said. You even probably know what it is that needs to be said, but you're waiting for somebody who should say it, right? That person should say it. That's an authority. That one over there. And then I realized after a little while, when nobody was saying it, it wasn't going to get said. And so I just took a deep breath, and I realized that the one who knows what needs to be said is the one who's supposed to say it. You want to say that with me? The one who knows what needs to be said is the one who needs to say it. That is your gift to bring. You're not there by accident. It's not a coincidence. It's not necessarily a job duty or, it wasn't necessarily my place around the table. But I could see, because my heart was attuned to doing the best things we could for the patients we took care of. And I truly, in my heart, and I still do, believe that every person sitting around that table had the same feeling, that they came into that profession for that purpose, even if they got distracted by politics and egos and money and time and who knows whatever. They got distracted, but the real truth of their souls was that they were committed to healing bodies and giving people longer, more healthful lives. And I was devoted to that too. And I thought, if I can be in service to that urge, that whatever it is that I think needs to be said, I'm going to put it out there. And so I did. And do you know what happened? No one asked me my credentials. And no one really argued with me. All the heads turned and they looked at me because they were surprised that who squeaked up on this end of the table. And I just calmly looked at them, and I mentioned what, Dr. Smith said, and I mentioned something that categorically opposed what I wanted to say, but I took his name and I took a phrase out of something he said, and I made it sound like it all went together so it would go in the direction I wanted it to go. Why? Because I love words. I love words, and I had a purpose, and I just felt like it was the right thing to do. And I had no power, I had no authority, and I couldn't make them do anything. But when I said it, they listened, and the conversation changed in another direction. I tell you that because it is not the positions that you hold. I mean, clearly, my position put me at the table, yes, and that's how I got there. But I didn't go there with any of that intention in mind. What I tell you this is that wherever you are, you have the authority to speak the truth as you know it, and that you are a tuning fork for the infinite. You are a tuning fork to bring that tone into existence and to send that holy message out there in whatever form it comes from, whatever form it needs to take. Speaking the truth sends out a vibration that creates. Let me say this. The other thing, too, is that whenever you say something that is patently false or illusion or only partly true, or you're close but no, you're kind of flirting with things back and forth, flip-flopping back and forth, and when you want to affirm a truth, something that is really deeply true, and you just can't quite grab hold of it yet, you find that your tapes are still playing negative things, and you get discouraged and you think, how many times do I have to undo this before this is really going to take hold, this truth? I'll tell you a secret. This up here, this illusion, has no power. It is connected to your ego that really doesn't have power. It has executive function. It has function in the world, but it doesn't have power. And it can only respond from your past experience. And so ego is the thing that is giving you all the illusion, the near misses on the truth, the things that kind of sound right. Anything that's right versus wrong, that's ego, right from the start. Right versus wrong. Morality will come from here, and you'll know it in your heart. But right versus wrong, like this is the good thing, or this is the right way, and that's the wrong way, and everything else, and we assign some morality to it, this is really coming from our ego. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. Ego is great with repetition. Ego will repeat as much as you need to. And why? Because this cannot stand by itself. Because it's not the truth. It doesn't have power. And the only way to keep you involved in it is to have you keep saying it and keep doing it and keep running that story and keep saying it over and over and repeating it and repeating it. That's why it runs over and over in your head, because it's a habit. But it doesn't have power unless you give it power, unless you act out of it. So here's the thing. Truth, on the other hand, because it comes from an eternal place, it is far more powerful and doesn't require the repetition. And you know what else? It doesn't need to be defended either. You don't have to tell anybody 9 reasons why this is the truth. You do not. Somebody might argue with you, but you don't have to argue back. They're just manipulating, and you know why? Here's the other thing. This is so true. This is so true. I can't stand it. It's so true. Here's what happens. When you speak the truth, you shoot a silver arrow out to the listener, however many listeners there are. A silver arrow goes out and lodges in their heart. It is true. It's a resonance, and they know it. At some level, they know it. Even if they push back against you, even if they resist you, even if they say, no, that's not the truth, and they give 9 reasons why that's not the truth, and why they don't want to see you anymore, and they walk away, but they can never unknow what you just said, and they will never forget. And it'll get pulled, it'll get knocked, things in their life will keep resonating back, and they'll remember it and remember it and remember it until someplace along the line, one of the times they get to choose to pay attention to this and to act from it. Whether they ever remember it was you who shot the first arrow is not important either. Your job is to do what you feel called to do it in the most loving way you know how, with the highest, most uplifting words you can, with the most compassion and open-heartedness, without resentment, without attack, without judgment, without anger, as best you can, to say the thing you know is the truth, and let it lie. Let it be there. Let it go. There's a Bedouin proverb that says, truth may walk through the world unarmed. It may walk through the world defenseless, because truth doesn't need any defense. That no matter how much lie gets thrown at truth, no matter how much illusion is thought about it, no matter how long it takes, no matter how much gets piled on, no amount of illusion can ever degrade or erode 1 iota of the truth. It is unaffected by it. It doesn't need any defense. All it needs is to be discerned and spoken aloud by those who can give voice to it. And that's us. This is dominion. This is our power. This is our time. Whatever it is that is deeply embedded in your heart, whatever is upon your heart, whatever circles you travel in, whatever truth needs to be said, you don't have to be plaintive about it. You don't have to yell it. You don't have to slam it down somebody's throat. You don't have to do any of those things, because none of those things will work. And it certainly won't make truth more true or more powerful than it already is. All you have to do is stand in that power, in that truth, and speak with an open heart. Speak when your heart can really be aligned with the deepest truth of who you are and of the highest good you align yourself with for all concerned. Harriet, a neonatologist, had devoted her whole life to taking care of preemie babies. She'd been an excellent primary care physician, and then as time goes on and as the ways of the world are, she got further away from patient care and was caught up in all the administrative stuff, and she found herself spending so many hours of her day not necessarily taking care of individual children anymore, but arguing with insurance companies and filling out paperwork and getting on the phone and arguing why this patient needed more care, why this preemie baby's life mattered, why they still needed this kind of care in order to survive. And she got so burned out on it that she went to a therapist to sit and just talk it out. And the therapist had some items in shelves around, kind of a Jungian, she used Jungian therapy methods, and they have all of these different items that you could pick up, and a sand tray that you could put them into. It was kind of a process. And this doctor had walked in and had seen this little starfish, and she had picked it up, and she was fumbling with it and holding it in her hand while she was talking, and you know, the therapist didn't miss that as a clue, and so as she listened to the despair of this good-hearted woman who loved these children so much but was just so burned out she didn't know what to do, she asked her about what she was holding in her hand, and she says, "Oh, it's a little starfish." And she said, "Do you think that has anything to do with what we're talking about?" And she looked at it for a moment. She said, "Well, I guess this matters." And she said, "Anything else?" She said, I don't know. And she said, "Well, why don't you take it home with you and bring it back next week, and you think about what does this have to do with what you may be feeling or thinking." And so before the week was up, she called for a sooner appointment, and she came in and she told her, she says, "I remembered what the starfish means." You've heard the story, I'm sure, of the old man who walked on the shore, picking up stranded starfish and throwing them back into the water, right? And somebody running by says, "Why are you doing that? They're just going to come right back tomorrow morning. You're going to have," he says, "what you do doesn't matter." And so he runs off, still laughing at the foolish old man. The old man stands there and looks down at the next starfish, and he bends over and he picks it up and he throws it back and he says, "Mattered to that one." And he picks up the next one and he continues. And that's when she realized that she can't change the system, as broken as it was, as it is, continues to be in many ways, that she couldn't change that. That wasn't really what her job was. Her job was to argue for each and every life, because that's how she served, that's how she healed, that's how she's devoted her life, because she knew that every single life mattered. Someone asked her once, "Do you ever feel so lost because these children that you're trying to help have so many social problems on top of physical problems, mental problems at times, and you can't possibly fix them all. You can't make them all better. Do you ever feel like what you do doesn't matter?" And she says, "Oh no, because I know that these children in particular, everything I do matters for them. Every difference I can make, everything that we have the power to make better matters." That's what dominion is, y'all. If one of us could stand up and wave a wand and change the world, OMG, wouldn't we do it? Especially if we thought we knew what the answer was, if we thought the right way for the world to go. Maybe we should be grateful that kind of power is not put in one person's hand. Maybe that's why we all have a piece of it. Maybe that's why we're all here to do the next right thing, to speak the word, to do the deed, to love as good as we can, to the next one we pick up, to the next less fortunate situation we enter into, to the one that we have the power or the gift or the genius to make better, to heal, to do, to solve the problem, whatever it is, the thing that gives us joy, that's why you're here. And that's why we need you to do that next thing. Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes says this: one of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Struggling souls catch light from the souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. At any given time, it's one of us. Maybe it's a whole bunch of us. At any given time, we're the struggling souls looking for somebody who can shine a light. That's why we need each other, so that we can remember that we have power here. And we will always look to the one who's shining the light the biggest. My very favorite philosopher, Teilhard de Chardin, says, "In the beginning was power, intelligent, loving, energizing power. In the beginning was the Word, supremely capable of mastering and molding whatever might come into being in the world of matter. In the beginning, there was not coldness and darkness. There was fire." Let your words be filled with the power of truth. You know why? Because our world needs you to do that now. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.